Hey folks, I'm Chris and I'm your Commander Mechanic. We're getting reveals of all of the new Commander pre-constructed decks from Streets of New Capenna this week, which means it's upgrade time. If you want to pick up any of these precons or even just pre-order the singles of the exclusive cards within them, be sure to check out my affiliate Harry Tarantula. Use my promo code CMDR5 for 5% off your first order and CMDR Mechanic to help support the channel. Today, we're looking at the new Obscura Operations Precon. This white, black, and blue deck is surprisingly aggressive in these colors, all about attack triggers like Connive or dealing combat damage to opponents. It's a different take for a color shard better known for casting spells and gaining life. Let's see if it'll work. I don't know if I'm a fan. Speaking of, if you're a fan of the channel, please be sure to subscribe. Every new subscriber and viewer helps, so be sure to hit that button for more precon upgrades, deck techs, and wild brews each week. Our box legend for Obscura Operations is Kamiz, Obscura Oculus, a 4-mana 2/4 Cephalid rogue. I love that Cephalids are back, but I don't know if I'm as big a fan of this new look for them. Anyways, Kamiz ensures that whenever you attack, target attacking creature can't be blocked this turn, and it connives, meaning you draw a card and discard a card, and if you discard a non-land card, you put a +1/+1 counter on the conniving creature. Then you choose another attacking creature with lesser power, and it gains double strike until end of turn. So Kamiz grants unblockable, power pumping, and double strike whenever you attack, without having to attack themselves? Hot damn, that is a lot of value on what is essentially an enchantment. Kamiz does a lot if you're looking to turn sideways, and I'm sure we can do a lot with this. But Kamiz isn't the only 3-colored legendary in this precon. No. We also have Tivit, Seller of Secrets, a 6-mana 6/6 flyer with Ward 3, meaning any spells or abilities that an opponent casts that target it are countered unless they pay an additional 3. Whenever Tivit enters the battlefield or deals combat damage to a player, starting with you, each player votes for evidence or bribery. For each evidence vote, you create a clue token. For each bribery vote, you create a treasure token. If that wasn't enough, you get to vote twice whenever players vote on anything. That is a lot of value here too. Entering the battlefield and potentially immediately refunding at least 2 mana via treasures is strong. Banking clue tokens makes for a ton of value later on too. Combine this with other voting cards like Council's Judgment, and you can make a strong, interactive, choice-themed deck. I really like both of these commanders. They do different things entirely, but are all equally on point for the abilities of the colors they embody. Being that I previously did an Esper attack-themed deck with Obscura Boss Rafine, linked up top, I'd like to take the deck in a more choice-based direction with Tivit in the lead. Let's have people make some tough decisions. But first, let's take a look at some of the incredible, unique cards within this precon. Some more really strong offerings in Obscura Operations that I feel will fit in a lot of decks in the future. For instance, one of my favorites is Life Insurance. This 5-mana enchantment has Extort, just like real life insurance, am I right? But this means whenever we cast a spell, we can pay an additional white or black mana to drain each opponent by 1 and gain life equal to the life we lost this way. Extort has historically always been a strong mechanic in Commander, and getting another instance of it is very welcome. Additionally, whenever a non-token creature dies, yours or someone else's, you lose 1 life and make a treasure token. This is some amazing, insane accrued value without a doubt. Passively making more mana and draining life from opponents is incredible. 1 extort trigger negates the life loss from 3 creatures dying. The value here is real. Just be careful about an opponent looping non-token creatures via sacrifice. That can be messy and you can drain yourself out without any way to stop it. Next up is Aerial Extortionist, a 5-mana 4/3 flying bird soldier. This mono-white creature reads, whenever Aerial Extortionist enters the battlefield or deals combat damage to a player, exile up to 1 target non-land permanent. For as long as that card remains exiled, its owner may cast it. If that weren't enough, it's got another line of text. It says, whenever another player casts a spell from anywhere other than their hand, draw a card. If it weren't good enough to be able to remove any non-land permanent on the battlefield, at bare minimum, the Extortionist draws you a card when opponents cast their commanders. Not to mention flashing back spells from the graveyard or casting from the top of their libraries. 5 mana is a hefty enough cost that this won't see play in higher power levels, but it is mono-white card draw and is repeatable removal, all on a good body. I like this a lot. Considering you can exile a permanent from a player other than the one that you dealt combat damage to, including your own permanents, this has a ton of use. Then we have Mask of the Schemer, a blue equipment for 3 mana with Equip 2 that says whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, it connives X, where X is the amount of damage it dealt to that player. Meaning you draw X cards, discard X cards, and put a +1/+1 counter on the conniving creature for each non-land card discarded this way. This is a great way to filter through your hand, make a creature bigger, and craft a hand of cards that will take you further and further into the game. Even better if you want to be discarding cards or can use cards in your graveyard. Being able to trigger discard effects en masse is very strong, as seen in that Rafine deck that I linked earlier. I like this card a lot as at least a creature-based blue card quality draw engine. Now we have an artifact that I am very excited for. It's Currency Converter, a 1 mana artifact that says whenever you discard a card, you may exile it from your graveyard. That line alone is just like Bag of Holding or Containment Construct, making it very useful in decks that connive or want to be exiling from graveyards like my favorite Quintorius Field Historian. If that weren't all, you can pay 2 mana and tap it to draw a card and discard a card. Or you can tap it to put a card exiled with Currency Converter back into your graveyard. If it's a land, you create a treasure token, and if it's a non-land, you make a 2/2 black rogue creature token. This is a value engine, a token generator, and a way to make a greater use of cards you're discarding. Making bodies, making treasures, all for a single mana? These utility artifacts, like Retrofitter Foundry before it, were vastly underestimated and always make a big splash. It's extremely versatile and can see play in anything that discards cards or just wants to make treasures on demand. I really like it. Lastly, we have our Obscura Confluence. This one is a 4 mana instant that lets us choose 3 of the following with the ability to choose any mode more than once. Until end of turn, target creature loses all abilities and has base power and toughness 1/1. Target creature connives, or target player returns a creature card from their graveyard to their hand. Of the confluences we've seen so far, this feels like the weaker of the offerings. It's the cheapest one we've seen so far, but each of these effects cost 1 to 2 mana at most. Honestly, I don't see myself often wanting to pay 4 mana to return 3 creatures from my graveyard to my hand, and effects like mass polymorph shrink creatures on a larger scale. I'm just not feeling this one, but I may be crazy. Let me know in the comments. With these new cards out of the way, let's take a look at the existing list. You can find the existing list and my updated list in the description below by following the link to my sponsor, Moxfield. Moxfield is the best deck building platform available, and as someone who is brewing upgrades to all 5 of the new Capenna Precons, they make it easier than ever. Bulk edit, changing print versions, and sorting by price makes it so that I can stay within budget and get you these guides as soon as possible. Be sure to check out my Moxfield profile link in the description below and follow me there. Out of the box, the Obscura Operations Precon leans very heavily into using Kamiz to make a creature unblockable. There's a distinct theme of on-combat damage triggers throughout the deck that I think doesn't translate well into shifting the deck's focus. With creatures like Daxos of Meletis, Graveblade Marauder, and the new Misfortune Teller, these creatures are great if they can get in for combat damage. Lacking true evasion beyond Death Touch, some of these may eat a few creatures but otherwise get chewed up themselves. Same can be said for Quietus Spike. While very solid in a deck where our commander makes attackers unblockable, and chunking down opponents for half their life total, the Spike loses a lot of luster if we remove Kamiz from the head of the deck. It's still cool to see something as nasty as the Spike reprinted in a Precon though. This sentiment also applies to the 2 Cypher cards in the deck, Stolen Identity and Writ of Return. I love making copies of things, and Stolen Identity does it fantastically if you can ensure an attacking creature gets through. 2 copies of something the turn you cast it? Amazing! And reanimating 2 creatures the turn you cast it, and 1 every subsequent turn with Writ of Return? I really like this card. But again, in a deck where you can't ensure you're getting through for combat damage, it loses some use. If we keep a volume of flyers in the deck, or some other evasive attackers like some unblockable fish for example, These make excellent includes, but if we're changing the deck's focus, these might not make the cut. However, there are some incredible cards that are staples to the format in this deck as well. In these colors, you get format-defining removal like Swords to Plowshares, Utter End, and Austere Command, all in the deck by default. That's amazing, and these are cards that translate to a lot of other builds too. Excellent creatures that have high value floors are included too, like Sun Titan, and amazing reprints of both Rexiel the Risen Deep and Silent Blade Oni, both currently $10 and almost always welcome in any blue and black deck. Speaking of, seeing Alayla Artful Provocateur and Drana Liberator of Malakir reprinted is very cool. These two lead some very fun decks that you could spin out of this precon while being amazing value generators in the 99. Alayla a little less so, as with a total of 17 artifacts and or enchantments in the deck, it's a little low to get the maximum value out of her. Not even many of the creatures included in the deck fly, so she might not make the final cut if we shift the deck. What we would include in the deck if we shift it to being led by Tivit is more voting cards. There aren't an overabundance of them, but they are all pretty solid. Getting to vote twice on them makes them even better. These voting cards, seen in the conspiracy sets, have two distinct types. There are cards like Coercive Portal that care about which option gets the most votes, tipping the scales in your favor, of course, and there are cards like Capital Punishment, which care about the number each vote has and have scaling effects. It's the cards that care about the number of votes that we get really wild with, potentially turning a Council's Judgment into a 5-for-1 removal spell. And, of course, let's not forget the crazy things that we can do with a commander that makes clues and treasures each turn. I don't know if I have to state my love for Academy Manufactor again here, but if we're making upwards of 5 clues and or tokens each turn, why even bother deciding? Why not make 5 treasures, 5 clues, and 5 food each turn? Between voting and making a load of tokens, we have a pretty solid theme for our deck. It's a shame token doublers like Anointed Procession are prohibitively expensive, because making twice as many treasures and clues with Tivit would really be ideal. But we can do a lot to take advantage of the tokens we are creating, like with All That Glitters or Nettle Cyst, and ensuring that we have at least one attacker that is massive problems for opponents. Making sure they get through for damage is going to be necessary. While Kamiz no longer leads the deck, having creatures like Tivit being unblockable means we reliably get that on-damage trigger to make tokens. So Aqueous Form or Whisper Silk Cloak would make fine additions to options like Whirler Rogue that already come in the list by default. Other ways to make tokens only gets us farther as well. Much like Anointed Procession, Smothering Tithe is prohibitively expensive, but we may want to find room for Revel in Riches to make tokens for all your opponent's creatures that may not survive combat or your removal spells. And naturally, we wind down with a discussion of the mana base. I'm not pleased we missed another opportunity for Pain lands to be reprinted in these decks, but reprints like Creeping Tar Pit and Fetid Heath are welcome includes with a lot of uses. I would remove the Vivid lands though, not entirely necessary to dilute your mana base with Enters tapped lands that don't produce all your colors. Replace these with basic lands and call it a day. The 38 lands included in the list is a lot too. With some of our changes, we could easily run 36 successfully and play on curve. So let me know what you think about pivoting the deck from Kamiz over to Tivit. Does the thought of a politically minded, vote-based deck excite you? How would you build the deck, and what would you include? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. And of course, as always folks, good luck and have fun.